What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Pokemon evolution is a core tenet of the overall experience, and truthfully, it's likely a big reason for the series' popularity in the first place. Tangible results for your hard-earned investment will motivate you to keep going. However, sometimes for a Pokemon to evolve, you have to do something a little out of the ordinary. And while even those can be grouped together, sometimes the way a Pokemon evolves is a unique gimmick not shared by any other. And while that can go awry, when it works, it's a blast. So here are the top 6 best evolution gimmicks in Pokemon. Number 6. Capsakid. Now, this one is sort of what gave me the idea for the video in the first place. Well, that and a comment from a loyal viewer. Leave your own ideas down in the comments and maybe you'll see them as a video in the future. But as we know, after level up evolution, the next most common method of growing your Pokemon is the evolutionary stones. There are quite a few of them, and they've added even more over the years, and luckily Gen 9 brought in more Pokemon to make these items relevant again, like in getting a Bellibolt with a Thunderstone. And that's generally how it works. You have a Pokemon of a certain type, so you power it up with the corresponding stone. However, we have a sort of special case here with Capsakid. This tiny little pepper Pokemon is of course a pure grass type, but in order to evolve it, you must expose it to a fire stone, and in doing so it changes into a fire type on top of the grass. This is almost the opposite of what most of these stone evolutions do. Instead of reinforcing an attribute that they already possess, it basically absorbs the power of this stone and then uses it for itself. Really, Eevee is the only other case like this, and I guess it maybe could be counted here, but we know that one is genetically unstable, so I think another Pokemon having this gimmick of simply using a stone to add that type on top of what they have instead of fully changing it is a great way to put a new spin on the mechanic that has been around in the games since the very start. And I do kind of hope that we'll be able to see this again in the future. Just don't use a water stone on your Scovillain, otherwise it might get a third blue head. Number 5. Tyrogue. So it's not like I'm in love with Tyrogue, but it's pretty hard to overlook its significance when it comes to evolution. This little boy in a Halloween costume has the most possible different evolutions of any Pokemon behind only Eevee. When you score second place to someone whose whole gimmick is to have as many forms as possible without even really trying, that's pretty impressive. The downside is that unlike Eevee, Tyrogue can only evolve into a pure fighting type. But the good news is those fighting types have vastly different functions in combat, and this is reflected in the methods of evolution for you to get them, which is unlike any other out there, in that the stats of Tyrogue will determine which Pokemon you'll get. If you have your attack stat higher than defense, you'll get a Hitmonlee, who is my favorite, and honestly that's pretty easy since it usually happens this way without much interference. On the opposite end, if the defense is higher than attack, it will become a Hitmonchan. Many people still mistake this one for the higher attack, which is understandable given its furious fists, but boxing is a lot more defensively focused than many people give it credit for. So then what if the attack and defense are exactly even? Well, that'll get you a Hitmontop. Get it? 'Cause it's balancing? I don't really care much for Hitmontop, but I will acknowledge that it is a very useful Pokemon in battle, getting spinning moves that the others don't get, and a ton of priority moves as well, while then Hitmonchan gets all of the elemental punches, and of course Hitmonlee gets all of those powerful kicking moves. Getting these Pokemon specifically from the stat investments that you cultivate is honestly a pretty genius idea, and I'm a little surprised that it hasn't been done a lot more. Hey, who knows, maybe we'll get some special variant-focused Hitmons in the future. Number 4. Rockruff. Again, many Pokemon do evolve based on the time of day, however some of them are just weird and don't really make sense. Like, why in the world does Chingling have to rely on the position of the sun to evolve? I feel like they just slapped it onto the Kalos fossils just to have them be different from each other. But with our pal Rockruff, this style of evolution actually means something, and even provides a degree of control. See, Rockruff technically only evolves into a single Pokemon, but the kind of Lycanroc that you get is up to you. I mean, initially it was split by game versions, but ever since then, the style of wolf that you receive is dependent on the cosmic clock. If you evolve Rockruff in the daytime, you'll get the midday form of Lycanroc, and if you choose to evolve it at night, you'll get the midnight form. So whether you want a ferocious wolf or a moody werewolf, you can have your favorite. But there are some defining features like the signature Accelerock. And that would likely be enough, but of course Lycanroc has one more trick with the Dusk form. This is a sort of missing link, adopting attributes from both of the others and a nice in-between color. However, this evolution is a bit more complex. Because it is the Dusk form, you can only evolve Rockruff into this version within the 7 o'clock hour of the day. If you do it too early or too late, you'll get one of the others. And even then, it only works with a special ability attached. I kind of hope that restriction will be lifted one day and then we can just get all of them if we wanted, but a Pokemon that actually models itself after the time of day that evolves it easily puts it at the top of any time-based evolutions in the series. And it is a lot easier to get than the last one we talked about, so the barrier to entry is much lower for all of the children out there. Number 3, Feebas. Okay, so on top of a Pokemon being incredibly hard to find in the first place, like seriously stupidly hard, harder than the legendaries, what if we also made it extremely difficult to evolve it past its first basically useless form? This sounds like an awful idea, but it somehow just works. Feebas is a Pokemon that evolves like no other by eating. Well, it's a little bit more than that. You feed it treats to max out its beauty stat for contests, and then you'll be able to evolve it into Milotic. Now, Milotic is a phenomenal Pokemon to have on your team, and you'll likely want one after seeing it used by the Water-type specialist Wallace. But you can really only get it by diving in head first into the unique contest path of the game. I'm willing to bet that many players had no interest in competing in Pokemon contests, but when a prize like Milotic is on the table, you pretty much force kids into trying it out. So tying an evolution to said mechanic is pretty genius to me. But also quite tedious, so if you didn't want to do that, then you kind of are missing out. That is until Gen 5, when they dropped contest altogether and added the Prism scale, which is the other reason why Feebas is in this spot. Trade evolutions are nothing new to Pokemon, and even trading by items has been done before. But providing this one for Feebas may have been necessary at the time, sure, but it's also a great way to appeal to all kinds of Pokemon fans. If you want to toil over your Feebas in an effort to make it as beautiful as possible because that makes you feel rewarded, then go for it. But if you want to fill out your decks or just teach Milotic all of the best move tutor attacks, then you can just trade it and do it that way too. So no matter how you like to play, there's a way for you to evolve Feebas. But neither one is too easy just handing you this overpowered accomplishment. Number 2, Qwilfish. Now, this isn't actually the only Pokemon to evolve in such a manner, but maybe the one that needed it most. Move-based evolutions have been a thing for a little while, like many of the Sinnoh evolutions to past Pokemon, and that largely makes sense as a way to explain why they couldn't evolve before. However, this mechanic has been complicated over time, like with Farfetch'd needing to get 3 critical hits in one battle, but I think they did it best in Pokemon Legends Arceus. This actually occurred multiple times, like with the new Weirdeer that was a sort of pseudo-mascot for the game, at least in the promotional material, since the only way for Stantler to evolve was to use a specific move a certain number of times. This is much better than simply knowing a move, like, how does just learning Ancient Power make Tangela evolve exactly? In these scenarios, like with Primeape using a Ghost move multiple times, it actually makes sense for them to evolve. But it's even better in Legends Arceus since those Pokemon like Qwilfish that evolve through using moves also require them to be used in a specific style, being either strong or agile. This means the Pokemon is actively training and trying to better itself by repeated practice, and in doing so masters a skill so well that it actually evolves. This is a much more intimate method of evolution over standard level up, since you both have to make a concerted effort to train in a specific area. For instance, having your Qwilfish use its signature move in a strong fashion enough times, thereby strengthening its poisonous spines to the point that it evolves them to become massively oversized. I can't confirm that's why it's named Overquill, but it just makes sense. I know the style move mechanic isn't in the games anymore, but I do hope that we'll be able to see these methods of training-based evolutions again in the future, because it's just too good not to continue, and it really builds a relationship between you and your Pokemon like no other method of evolution can. Number 1, Mantyke. Baby Pokemon often have different methods of evolving because of their asynchronous introductions, But to me, the most unique and fitting ways to evolve has got to be for Mantyke. To me, this little Ray Pokemon honestly has very little special about it. I don't ever remember using one despite having used Mantine multiple times. However, as you may notice, from the very beginning, Mantine has had a little extra going on with its design, since it has another Pokemon along for the ride. Remoraid has been firmly attached to the underside of Mantine for years, so when it came time to have this Gen 4 baby Pokemon evolve, what else could they do but include our favorite fish sidearm in the process? To evolve Mantyke, all you have to do is level it up on the same team as a Remoraid, and then it will become a Mantine. This is brilliant, because what's the one thing that was missing for it to become its bigger, bulkier self? I mean, besides the tail, there is no better calling card for the kite Pokemon than its signature clingy friend. So not only does this unlock the full potential of the Pokemon in a way that only its special accessories could, but it also really fleshes out the whole world here and makes it seem more real. These Pokemon clearly have a symbiotic relationship, so it would only make sense that Mantine allows Remoraid to hang around because it literally makes them stronger. This is something that can and does occur in the wild without any human interaction. These Pokemon just seem to find each other, but when a human does want to do it, it's not that difficult at all. You don't even have to use the Remoraid in battle or anything. And you certainly don't have to evolve it like getting a Wailord just to unlock all of the Reggies. I've not really looked up the numbers, just going with my gut here, but in most games, you're usually gonna find a Remoraid first anyway. So it's not like you'll ever be stuck with the baby form for very long before you can take it into your own hands. Granted, this may not be the most intuitive thing to let you stumble across it naturally. Someone may occasionally, but once you learn of it, it just makes too much sense, and everything clicks perfectly in the lore and the mechanics. There are some other Pokemon that evolve based around other Pokemon, but Panchams is a little too generic with just any dark type, and then Shellman and Carablast require a friend for you to trade. A Mantine can be acquired all on your own and is a perfect display of how Pokemon would actually interact in their world. Which is why, to me, Mantyke has by far the best evolution gimmick of them all. But maybe you don't agree, or even agree with my premise on what counts as an evolution gimmick in the first place. Which Pokemon evolutions do you consider to have the best gimmicks? Let me know down in the comments. Also, be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded.